You see, something is going to happen. Something wonderful.
My God, it's full of stars.
Welcome to the Occult Rejects. We are finally wrapping up the Smiley Face Killers series. And obviously, I'm back with everybody that's been doing the first three parts with me. I have Lisa. What's up, Lisa? Thank you very much for coming on again. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm very excited to be here.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And we got JJ, my favorite garbage can dude. What is going on, my man? It's been a while, too. It's actually been a while since I've talked to all of you.
No, it's appreciate the invite back, Nick, Lisa. It's great to join y'all for a conversation. BD, looking forward to the hearing some more of your forensic astrology analysis and some of the Smiley Face Killer stuff. So yeah, definitely looking forward to the conversation. Thanks for the invite back.
Yeah, of course, man, of course. And I know I probably said this in every episode, but for, maybe some people are catching this one as the first one, or maybe they didn't hear me or forgot in the last three episodes. I highly suggest to go check out JJ Vance's Smiley Face Killer work. It's great. I know a lot of people have already listened to William Ramsey's. They all know who he is. Go listen to JJ's very good work as well. And we got BD, the occult. Oh God, I forgot what I was calling you. True crime occultist.
True crime occultist.
There we go.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice.
Wow. So how are things? You doing well?
Very well.
Good.
Looking forward to this.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to. Because there's stuff that you and Lisa both have that I actually have no idea about. I've seen it, but I don't know where we're going with it. So I'm really excited to actually finally hear this stuff. And fortunately for me, and I guess probably for the listeners too, there's actually not much that I got for this one because there's a lot of extra stuff that Lisa and BD are going to be covering, and JJ too a little bit, after we're done. So it should be really interesting for me, kind of like story time for me now. So I'm really looking forward to this episode, actually. I was like, I can pay attention to the chat. I don't have to worry about my notes. So
story time with the Oracle.
Yes, yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of almost like what the Oracle does, right? It's like story time. It's going to tell you, I'm going to tell you the visions I supposedly saw.
Yeah. Yeah, it's some wild stuff. It blew my mind, and I hope it blows yours too. It was really wild stuff I came up with.
But unlike other oracles, we're not charging. Give you a couple of gold coins before I bullshit you.
No sacrifices.
I need a couple of shekels before I tell you some bullshit lies.
That's awesome.
All right. All right. So I'm going to shut up now and we'll get into it. Oh, by the way, for everybody's stuff, I guess I should have said plug your stuff, but for everybody's, JJ's notes will be down at the bottom, his links will be down at the bottom, and everything for BD will be down at the bottom too. I think there's 2 link trees for them. Check them out. And Lisa, you can find her at Lisa Soliz or Soliz Lisa on Instagram and Twitter. And I guess we'll get right into it. So we're going to be starting off with you, correct, Lisa?
Yes. We're going to talk about the last person that we're going to cover, not the last victim that was found in Ladybird Lake, but this is one that to me stood out the most and thought that he deserved a good amount of coverage. So this is Jonathan Honey, and Jonathan Seth Honey, age 33. And he disappeared. I'm just going to get right into it. I'm just going to go into the case and then go a little bit into his biography. And I kind of wanted to bring up his parents, which I really haven't done a whole lot with all the other victims. And the reason for it, you'll see as we start to layer.
It really makes it interesting too, obviously.
I think so. So Jonathan Honey disappeared, went missing on Friday, March 31st, 2023. And I thought that you have a lot of threes associated with Jonathan Honey. March being the 3rd month, 31, the 23rd year. And he's also 33 years old. Yeah. And so Honey traveled from Washington, D.C. to Austin to attend a bachelor party. And so they went out drinking that night. And when I guess, the bars are closing, he separated from his friends and went to go find food. And so when you look up his storyline, you look at all of the reports coming from the, what's it called? I guess media or whatever, they keep referring to the same phrase, left his friends to find food. And it's in quotation. So I went ahead and wanted to make sure that is said because I don't know if that is symbolic of some sort. So he was last seen at a taco truck on Rainy Street around 2 a.m., and police began to search the river because he was reported missing right after, which is kind of unusual because usually you don't report a person missing right away. He was then found on Saturday, the next morning, or the next day rather, April 1st, 2023. So between the time frame of 2 a.m. to the time frame they find him, it's about 10 hours. And so that is potentially the same amount of time as Randy Lexfold went missing. And those two were the only ones in all of the Austin LBL victims that had the shortest time frame of going missing and then found. And I thought that is potentially important, and I'll tell you why here in a bit. So when he's found on Saturday, April 1st, 2023, this would mark the third person ID'd that was recovered in Ladybird Lake within a 30-day span. So hence the threes that just keep repeating. And he's seen approximately 10 hours after he was last seen around 2 a.m. APD report, Austin Police Department reported the body was recovered near 10th Rainy Street in the water of Ladybird Lake. And they received the call. They received the 911 call at 11:45 p.m. But they found the body at 11:49 p.m. Now I got this off the obituary, but then there's discrepancy versus 12:50, what have you, right? So it's kind of one of those things. From the ME and the ME documents that were released online, it was ruled accidental drowning. No surprise there. Tox reports showed alcohol in the system. No surprise there. He also had drugs in his system, which were consistent with over-the-counter or prescribed medications. He had the amphetamine or the hydroxyzine. I think that's how you say it. I'm not sure. But which is the antihistamine, which is the same two that you constantly see with these victims. You see the antihistamine and you see the amphetamine combined always. Now, they also mention that Honey was prescribed ADHD drugs, and that's probably where the amphetamine is being picked up in the talk screen. Again, no one said if he had taken it that day. No one said if he was still on it, but they are kind of referring that medical history shows that he has been prescribed drugs like that, and so they assumed that's what that was. There was no GHB detected in his bloodstream. However, if we remember Jason John, there was no GHB detected by the Travis County medical examiners, but when they sent vials separate to another ME, that ME ended up pinging positive for GHB. So this is still, one of those cases. After Jason John, I know I keep bringing him up, but after Jason John, they had put lights in along Rainy Street prior to South by Southwest. Remember, we talked about how all of these bodies kind of are recovered or being found around those big events or festivals. And so South by Southwest happens usually in the middle of March. And so they had installed all the lighting. That was already in place. And yet this ends up happening towards the end of March, 1st of April. So he's roughly missing 10 hours, just like Randy Lexfold. And what I wanted to point out between these two is that what's interesting is that both of them had private contracting type positions with the DOD and DOE, Department of Energy, adjacent. So I wonder, this is me thinking, that they snag somebody, they run his credentials, and they're like, oh crap, not the guy we should be picking up. Let's get rid of him. Because it doesn't make sense why they would keep certain ones longer, and then these two who have these two specific job type descriptions are recovered faster. This is just my 100% speculation. That's on that. So that following Monday, APD releases a statement saying, of course, no suspicion of foul play. And they further cite circumstances, exact locations, and demographics surrounding these cases vary. One common theme of the drownings in Austin this year is a combination of alcohol and easy access to Ladybird Lake. And this is a common thing that's constantly released when they find these victims. So just to kind of get into a little bit of biography, I want to say biology, biography of Jonathan, and then I'm going to get into his parents. So he was born on February 23rd, 1990 at Griffiths. And if I pronounce this wrong, JJ, please correct me. I know I'm slaughtering these, but he was born at Griffiths Air Force Base in New York.
That's correct.
To
yep.
Dr. Okay. to Dr. David A. Honey and Cynthia N. Yellen in Rome, Oneida County, New York. He and his family moved from Hanscom Air Force Base, Massachusetts, and then to Fairfax, Virginia in 1997. During adulthood, he remained in Northern Virginia area, and his family were members of the congregation of Olam Tikva, where he received his bar mitzvah and confirmation. So he was active in the Boy Scouts of America, even achieved the rank of Eagle Scout. He graduated from Woodson High School, was involved in cross country, indoor-outdoor track and field, went to Old Dominion University where he got a bachelor's in mechanical engineering, a master's later in systems engineering from George Mason University, and then went to graduate school. After graduate school, he went to go work as a defense contractor before becoming program manager at the same company called Washington Gas. So at George Mason University, Honey was also a dedicated clay shooter team on the clay shooter team, and he traveled extensively through the collegiate competition type deal where he was competing in clay shooting. And he had ended up becoming part of the Fairfax Rod and Gun Club. And I think this is a big deal because his dad donates a lot of money to that. So to me, it indicated that this is, and when I tell you who his dad is, this is of some prominence.
Real quick, I just want to interrupt. I'm sorry, just real quick. You said it was that clay shooting.
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe JJ wasn't on with me. It could have been someone else, or maybe it was by myself. I had Ryder Lee on for like the UFO psyop type stuff, and somehow he went down some rabbit hole with the whole clay shooting thing. It's like kind of like they stole like some of those ideas to start perpetrating saucers in the sky. Yeah, and I was like, yo, what?
Yes.
That was I think that was the original name of the clay shooting was a flying saucers. They
yes,
referred to the pigeons as saucers.
Yeah, because he was seeing it was a real easy way to go from one thing to the next because you already had an idea what a flying saucer was because you clay shooting. I don't know, the way he explained it, I was like, yo, that I really could see people like mentally thinking that way to push an idea.
Oh, sure.
It was very weird though. I didn't want to sorry to interrupt, but I just.
No, not at all. And honestly, you're not interrupting. All it is, I was just going to basically say he fit the victimology. He was active. He was fit. He was well-versed in a lot of athletics. So he wasn't somebody that, was going to end up succumbing to something as simple as tripping over, falling into the water and drowning, right? And that I even question that because they say when you drown, doesn't the body submerge? And then you don't find the body for a couple of days until it resubmerges. And so for his body to be found or recovered so soon after, it kind of calls that whole theory into question. So let me get into his parents just a little bit. So his mom is Cynthia N. Yellen, and she was an Air Force veteran and a licensed clinical social worker. She has a bachelor's in rehabilitation counseling, clinical social worker from Syracuse, with an MBA in healthcare from Western New England University. At her practice, which I find interesting, she offers not only therapy, but an eye movement desensitization and reprocessing type therapy that is listed under her cognitive behavioral therapy. So I thought, oh, wow, the whole eye comes into play. And then we'll talk about his dad here in a bit. She also offers meditation services and clinical supervision for therapists seeking licensures. The name kind of stuck out to me, Yellen, because of Secretary of Treasury Janet Yellen, who has not only been a high-ranking member of a lot of the positions in the Federal Reserve under Clinton, Obama, and Trump, but now she is the current Secretary of Treasury for Biden. So I thought I wonder if they're related, and I tried looking for a link, couldn't find anything association. So I'll say it's not say it is, but I found that pretty interesting. So going on to his dad. His dad is Dr. David A. Honey, and he is currently the Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering. He assists the Undersecretary of Chief Technology Officer. He helps managing research, development, and prototyping activities across the Department of Defense, and he helps oversee the following agencies: Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or better known as DARPA, Missile Defense Agency, Defense Innovation Unit, DoD Laboratory and Engineering Center Enterprise. In regards to DARPA, Honey previously served as a special assistant to the director, and also as acting deputy director, director of strategic technology office, director of advanced technology office, deputy director of program manager in the microsystems technology office. Outside of DARPA, and the reason I'm going through this is because there's a point, I promise. Outside of DARPA is he has acted as the acting director of strategic capabilities officer, the director of science and technology, and he has been the assistant deputy director of national intelligence for science and technology in the office of the director of national intelligence. And I think, JJ, you know this, that the office of director of national intelligence is the office that oversees all U.S. intelligence agencies. They are the ones that oversee the big five, the CIA, the NSA, the National Reconnaissance Office, which SpaceX actually delivers data to or helps, provide data for.
Sure.
Defense Intelligence Agency and National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. So would you say that he's kind of a big deal?
Yeah, I mean, he's a huge deal. In fact, a lot of folks concentrate on like the secretary level, especially within the Department of Defense, but it's always the undersecretary and his kind of captains, his or her captains, which sounds like this victim's father served in that role as one of the very key roles as far as the technology aspects of the Department of Defense, especially with overseeing DARPA. I mean, he would be like more of the technical guy, as the secretary serves more of an administrative function, and then the undersecretary and their immediate folks, their immediate team, serve as more of the operational function for these activities. So yeah, Jonathan Honey's father most certainly would have been very involved within some of the operational aspects of DARPA in that position.
Absolutely. And then when you look at his education, he's getting a bachelor's in photographic science, a master's in engineering physics, master's in optical science, which is like lasers, detectors, and fibers, comms, and then got a PhD in solid state physics. I mean, you're talking about high level intelligence there. This is,
absolutely.
I mean, obviously, so to me, I think there's something there just in terms of that intelligence. And then when we look later at some of the tech industries in Austin, it almost pulls it together. But one of the things that I wanted to mention that came about in April was this. It is on April 11th, 2024 of this year, a lawsuit was filed by Cynthia Yellen and David Honey in Travis County with the 250th District Court for personal injury against Unbar Livable, who is being represented by Seth Klein. Now, remember, last episode, we talked about Unbar Livable.
Yeah.
And how that was the guy with the guy that had the Hummers.
Brandon Cash.
Yeah.
Yes. And they're filing a lawsuit against him this month. And so I took it upon myself to kind of, look through Reddit, of course, of all places. But Unbar Livable, no love lost. There's a lot of people like applauding the fact that it's closing. But one of the Reddit posts that I thought was pretty curious. I mean, I'm sorry, not one. If you scroll through it, there are numerous people on that Reddit post indicating that they were roofied there, and that there was a running joke through the thread that roofie dealers lost their biggest customer.
Wow, that's interesting.
And so we're talking about GHB. Now these people are suing Unbar Livable, but yet he didn't test positive for GHB. Again, it's I don't know. It all leaves you with. Now the other thing on April.
It almost makes you, if I may interject real quickly,
later, Unbar. No, go ahead, please.
No, it almost makes you wonder what tests they're doing for the GHB to reach that determination. For example, are they intentionally doing like a blood test where they know it may not show up in that, or are they testing the kidneys where they know it lasts longer, or the evidence of it lasts longer? Do you see what I'm saying? Where they can almost, like the medical examiner's office can almost pick their own, choose their own journey as far as whether or not they're going to find GHB. They may not be testing these samples where the GHB remnants last longer.
They probably test that in the most cheapest, shittiest way because they probably don't think it's actually of importance.
Exactly.
But they do it just to be like, we checked.
Yeah, and if they're just doing the blood, it's my understanding that they're testing the kidney samples, that the evidence of GHB would last longer in the kidney than versus the blood. So I'm just throwing that out there. Maybe they already know that they're going to, with the kind of conclusion they're going to get by doing an improper test, or testing the wrong material. I just think there's a lot of games that can be played there. To say he didn't test positive for GHB, I think, is important to note, but also important to consider that these ME offices may be gaming the system at this point to avoid those circumstances.
And then you even have BDO that breaks
talked
down
about
to
that
GHB.
they were.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it sounds like the Travis County one might in fact be one of the biggest offenders of that kind of activity in these recent cases.
Right, exactly. And so the other thing, and Dana brought it up in the chat, is that, with Honey's father being in intelligence, this could get really interesting. Either they picked the wrong guy, and now they're on the radar, right? They're on the intelligence radar. And somebody's now looking into this crime syndicate, so to speak, right? Or this was a shot across the bow, or it was a target hit.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it was like a Masonic initiation. It's like 33. He just killed off Jonathan Honey, and he's going to pop up with another new name as an important person 10 years from now. I know that sounds out there, but
I agree with you, Lisa, because between his father's connections to things like DARPA and the Director of National Intelligence, that's as you stated, that is the collective intelligence outfit of all of the intelligence agencies in the U.S. government. All, I believe, 17 of them. So as far as Jonathan Honey's father, he's positioned amongst the top echelon of intelligence within the U.S. government. So that's it's an interesting. Perspective, especially if they're suing him. I'd be curious to see if that ever sees the light of day, or if that somehow gets settled out of court.
I remember, I think Lisa told me a little bit about the Jonathan Honey stuff, and when she had mentioned the thing about her father, I think me and her had kind of even wondered the idea, like what Dana had said, where it was like, for all you know, like that was like an attack at the father by taking out the kid.
Sure.
And I was like, I don't know like how this would work, but it just is weird too how like I don't think like the news, unless the news was involved in like picking with the pictures, Jonathan Honey is one of the many that I have noticed that I could be literally coincidence because there is so many cases that we've looked at, but he is one of a bunch that I have noticed when they're shown. If there's a few pictures, there's one of them that I'm holding a fish.
Right.
And then like if you want to go back to the whole mafia thing, like he's sleeping with the fishes. And I was just like, damn. Like,
you never know. It's certainly plausible there. It is odd that they continue to select, photos with fish, these men fishing, It is odd.
Yeah. If it was one or two, but I had seen at least, I think, 4 or 5 over like the last year or two. The first few I was just like, But then doing this, I was like, because I think there was 2 more or 3 more within all of these, but I didn't add it to the show to drag all more time because I already knew there was a lot to it. But yeah, there was a few people with fishes, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, even in Occult Symbolism, to me, that just even seemed weird. It's like, you're going back upstream now.
Okay.
And it just
I kind of always often written, I think that's a great suggestion. But when I initially wrote it off as is the media wanting to put these guys near the water, like, look, here's a picture of them near the water. Of course they fell in and drowned. You know what I mean? Like that, that kind of ignorant kind of planting that idea,
like the association.
Yeah. But it probably does have more than one purpose. It probably does have an occult purpose to it as well.
Yeah, you could
it is a pattern that tends to repeat itself with these victims.
You could listen to
and I don't know.
Go ahead.
If there's anything significant with the Chesapeake Bay, but they made mention that he was an avid fisher of Chesapeake Bay. Chesapeake, right? That's how you say it. I don't know. But sorry, that was it on that one.
I have to imagine that clay shooting club that the Fairfax. I don't know this from any personal experience, but given the proximity and the, I know how much the affinity of some of these quote unquote elite folks of the federal government like to, do the clay shooting and the shooting and gun clubs. That one that he's a member of. That given the proximity to DC and the intelligence apparatus around DC. I have to imagine that rod and gun club is probably full of spooks.
Yo, JJ, when I covered one of your guys, didn't somebody in that little thing, I think it might have been somebody in the police force, went back to a 33 shooting away, some gun club thing?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. And and to that same note, one of the other victims we previously covered was the son of a the U.S. Marshal for the Eastern District of Wisconsin. So I mean, another high up kind of law enforcement kind of intelligence position as well within the U.S. Marshal Service. With the U.S. Marshal Service being, there's a marshal that's divided in, there's a U.S. attorney for each state, and then typically each state's divided into two sections for the U.S. Marshal in charge of each section of the state. And it was Matt Kruzicki's father. He was a victim that died in Dubois, Illinois. But his father, was the U.S. Marshal at one point in time for the Eastern District of Wisconsin, where he's from. Yes. So, could to the note, or these could these be hits, on regarding some of these victims, parents, and I think that's certainly plausible.
So one of the things that Nick mentioned, and Nick, did you wanted to say something? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But so one of the things that I want to mention is, so they're suing Unbar Livable, right? And Nick had mentioned how almost difficult it was to put these guys under. They did amazing during COVID, if anything. And they were kind of untouchable in terms of all the offenses, all of the grievances that the city put against them, all the complaints, whatever. They still thrive.
People protest over that.
Now they have. There was an actual citywide protest against this guy and his bars. So it's not all his bars, but this one bar is being sued. And then that was on April 11th. And on April 26th, he released an Instagram post that they were closing.
Oh.
So and that they're moving to Houston or Dallas.
See, it's interesting though. Like if you look back at how the way I previously covered in the last episode, like how do you know they're really leaving? Because like they already got caught supposedly being another business and then saying that they stopped, and now another place is supposedly there, but yet they're like, we still found you advertising that you're doing something there. Like, and, or other people taking over the company, but like they're still involved. It's like, well, now my friend's name is on it legally. Mm-hmm. It's like, how do you know, like, if you're really leaving or not?
Yeah, I wonder who
you're just switching shit around.
That note.
I mean, really, it's probably how, like, this is just my experience, and it is what it is. I mean, in some ways, I guess it's like, whatever. You know loopholes to fuck the government, and I think there's times where I do think that's definitely should be done. Because fuck them. But there was times during COVID, how many, especially the Asian places, Chinese food places or whatever, will like close down and then all of a sudden change their name and a month later pop back open and it's the same fucking food and people there. It's because they knew how to play fucking games with what's going on with COVID.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like they didn't leave. They just found a loophole not to get screwed by this stupid shit that's going on and being able to not lose so much money and pop back open. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, that's how the rich stay rich. They find those little things to do. But, I mean, again, with this bar, it's probably the same thing. That's what seems to be the track record from what we showed in the last episode.
Yes. But doesn't it seem like you have this father who literally has almost an arsenal of weaponry in terms of intelligence, and it seems like he brought a knife to a freaking bombing? Why would you? I mean, maybe this is the first step, and I don't know behind the curtain, so this is all speculation about mine. But it's almost like, why are you going after somebody small? Why are you putting? I'm glad they did. I'm just saying, I would have expected more of an offense. Maybe I don't know, but in terms of how that works, but yeah, I'm glad they're suing. I'm glad they're doing something about it. I was almost hoping to read more had been done, at least because of the power he had. So yeah, and that's all I have for Jonathan Honey.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't know if there was anything you wanted to add.
Oh, and one more thing.
Oh, go ahead.
One more thing. Jonathan Honey has the minimal amount of information out of majority of them, which I thought was interesting considering his dad.
Yeah, actually, that's why I actually said I had no notes. It's because like there wasn't really even much for me to look into.
Yeah.
And then with the unbelievable, it's like I've already covered that, so what am I going to do? Bring it up again?
Yeah. And I dare say no one has reported that this is his dad on any of the smiley face, Austin, anything. No one has. I've never found anybody mentioning anything about this dad.
Well,
I almost question if it was his dad. but it is. I found the pictures. Yeah.
Sure.
Anyway, that's all I got.
Okay.
Let me take this down.
Was there anything you wanted to add, JJ? Or if not, we can go into BD. It's up to you.
No, I think that's a great analysis there, Lisa. I mean, this certainly seems like an interesting case, especially, given the proximity of the time frame and location his body was discovered. It certainly seems like he did not drown just on its face. He wouldn't be floating unless he wasn't already dead before he went in the water to be found that quickly. So I think, there's a lot of reasons to be suspect of this individual's death, and certainly seems like it fits the same pattern as the rest of these victims of the smiley face killer variety.
I think so.
Yes. All right.
Yeah, and relative to the intelligence connections, I think I'll get into some of why that I find that interesting later on when I compare to some of the other notes that I have for more of a strategic analysis of these crimes. But yeah, I think that can't be ignored for sure. Like it's, especially if they're not, the local media is not even reporting that that's who his father is. Like, and there's a lawsuit now out. It's just, that's newsworthy in and of itself in the local media.
Yo, I was gonna say, like, how much you could blow that up and make it seem so important.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If
the
it's
son
not
of
being
so
blown
and
up,
so.
Yeah, it's odd.
But then you get like these cases that make zero sense pop up and become huge.
Right. Yeah. No, just from a local media perspective, that should be newsworthy that this family's suing this bar and this bar is closing down. And then you look at the plaintiff, who the plaintiff is, and they go, oh, it's this guy. And yeah, if none of that's being reported, that's even more suspect.
All right. So, BD, I'll pull up your slides and I'll let you have.
All right.
And I'll set it up like this. There we go.
Just an extra word on the fish. Fish is a symbol for sacrifice in old religious traditions. It used to symbolize Jesus Christ. So him holding all these fishes, maybe there's something to that. I mean, it's been put forth enough times to make you wonder.
Yeah. That's why I was like, yo, the symbolism with that, just redundantly can go back to death, I think, in so many different ways.
And it does actually tie in what I'm going to talk about a little bit later. But right now I have Jonathan Honey's birthday. I do not have the exact time, but I have enough I don't know where the moon is. I don't know the rising sign, but I have enough data to get the locations of the planets, which are really very interesting. And you see the red circle there. This is another one of those charts where almost everything's compacted into a small area. And most of his planets are in Capricorn, the sign of Capricorn. And that, we've talked about that in the previous discussions, and also with the other assassinations I talked about. Mark David Chapman, John Lennon, Robert John Bardo, Rebecca Schaefer. Capricorn keeps surfacing in all of these suspicious murders. Now, to just recap a little bit of it, Capricorn is a sign ruled by Saturn, and when it goes bad, it's bad. It's actually the tarot card of the devil is Capricorn, so it can be quite evil. And when the person goes astray, it's usually very dramatic. Something really amazing happens, like President Nixon, who was a Capricorn, resigned, something like that. But there's a lot of Capricorn, and what that's telling me about Jonathan in particular is that he was very studious. He was very hardworking. He was very ambitious, and he has a couple of planets in the following sign, Aquarius, the moon and Mercury, and that gives him super talent in technology. As well as the Capricorn, he understands structure. Therefore, his body was very well toned. He worked out. He was athletic. He was into structure. He was a mechanical engineer. He was into structure. That's Saturn to the T. So with the moon and Mercury, he was likely to become an engineer, somebody to do with the sciences, high technology, possibly intelligence. And I have to note that Capricorn also rules government bodies. So he was certainly involved with that, with this large amount of Capricorn. And we keep going back to Capricorn's evil side. I'm not saying Jonathan had an evil side at all, but when it manifests in the life, it can be, as I said, catastrophic. And I think it also, in his case, Capricorn's a sign where you don't get away with a lot of stuff. When Saturn's your ruling planet, you pretty much are ruled by karma. You give back what you give. And it can relate to poor judgment. You make one mistake, do something wrong, talk to the wrong person, go to the wrong place, and the result can be karmic, which could be not in your favor. And that's what I think happened to him on the night that he went missing. I just want to make sure in the birth chart, I pretty much covered what I want to say there because I don't have a lot of information on where these are located. Now, when he was last seen, that harkens back to the chart of Jared Dion. Same thing is going on. Sorry about that. The rising sign just turned to Capricorn again. Something changed in that moment that he supposedly went to get food, which I don't think he did. Something happened. He left his group then. In Jared Dion's case, he was with people and then he left to go and call his mother on the phone. And I had mentioned in that talk that was real. I'm sorry about that. The answering machine went off.
Oh, it's okay.
Anyway.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, great.
Now I hear it, yeah.
Sorry.
It's all right.
Okay. Thank you. So with Capricorn, something became very serious for him. At that moment, he went to so-called get food. Something became very serious. And it's interesting that it's his sign predominantly. The chart moves into his sign and things begin to happen to him. Now, going back to his natal sign, he's got some difficult placements for violence. He's got a difficult placement for getting along with or relating well to women. I am wondering if this is one of those gay situations where he was lured by someone, and I'll explain why. When I go to this Capricorn chart, Saturn again is ruling, and there's a contact between where you see the red circle, that's the brand new ascendant of Capricorn showing that something just changed. Then the line going down to Pluto, they relate, and Pluto is destruction. Something bad was going to happen to him, and it was through another person who had intentions on him. I believe he was lured away. There's a suggestion in here of the chart on the right, the last scene chart, of some sort of entanglement sexually. But this person had bad designs, and it is an exact aspect to Saturn, his ruling planet, violence coming to his ruling planet. And they're both in water signs. In this case, it's Mars where the arrow is pointing on the right-hand side. Mars is in Cancer. Cancer rules local bodies of water like municipal ponds, lakes, pools. That's a water sign. Saturn's in Pisces. That's larger bodies of water. And I'm going to talk about that again when we get to Oracle. Neptune's at the bottom of the chart, also in Pisces, which rules fish. So with his ruling planet in the sign that rules fish, that connects to all the fish pictures, and Neptune rules photography. So that's telling me that this chart is accurate and radical and does say what happened. But there's a mention of he was attracted away. He didn't go for food. I don't see food in here at all. This was something to do with great anger by the person, somebody with resentment, because the asteroids are asteroids of retaliation. He might have known this person. This person had an axe to grind. I really get a personal feeling from this, but I don't know who that's directed at. It's personal for him, or it's personal because of who he is, and that reflecting back to his family. There's a lot of activity in the fourth house of the family, and relating to resentment and anger. So I don't think this was an accidental thing. I think this was a targeted thing. The drowning issue where he was found was all intentional, and he was watched. And there was also suggestion of some sort of retaliation. So who knows if Jonathan was he was the victim, but what was the message? I think it went a little beyond him. And with the Pisces coming up and the Neptune and the sacrifice and the fish. And it comes up again later on, which I'm going to talk about. So there are definite suggestions of something by proxy here related to someone better connected. The fourth house where all those planets are, where the blue line is going across, going over the green. The green circle is where I thought there was some sort of gay activity, gay seduction or whatever. But that's the house of the father with all those planets in the bottom of the chart. The blue line is starting to go through. That's the sign of the father. So I think that there was definitely something going on nefarious. And with Jonathan's connection to the government and the Capricorn rules the government, there's definitely a connection to something deeper than a kid goes to the pond and somebody pushes him in or he falls in and drowns. So that's what I have for Jonathan.
That's really interesting, all the fish stuff.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fish coming up too, and there's so much Capricorn. I mean, I can't get over the Capricorn. There's enough Capricorn to start a goat farm. I mean, you have Capricorn in everything. With all the murders, it's evil, the ambition, it's the government. It was in Mark David Chapman, John Lennon. All the ones I've previously discussed had Capricorn, and they had a specific 8th degree of Capricorn, which is a degree of murder. So it keeps coming up. Now I'm at the point where I want to go back and make a track all the ones where I found previously, because now I can see patterns. In the beginning, I wasn't really seeing patterns as much. But you get this Capricorn in the government and Capricorn and, other nefarious activities and ambitious people that get to the top and then go corrupted. And so it's a very consistent theme in these stories.
Yeah, like even stuff that I've covered with Lisa, I think it's mainly with her that I did a lot of gematria with, this year. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of times where I would cover things and like there'd be some stuff here and there that really didn't seem to go anywhere, so I would just leave it out. What's the point of bringing it up? Or I didn't think it was going anywhere, or like these numbers that didn't match anything. And like I started to notice eventually that those was repeating in other things. And like it's like, damn, like I wish I would have like saved the stuff that I didn't think meant anything. Because now after a year, I'd see that actually like a common thread through probably half the crap I've done. And it's like, and it's like, when you're playing with numbers, like that, is there a significance there? It just seems weird.
Well, yeah, and you could do it with signs. I'm starting to look at degrees numbers. I never looked at that, but I'm starting to see that. Like it's going to come up with Oracle. But now I'm looking back at my notes, the significant Capricorns. I mentioned Lennon and all those guys, but Clifton Axtell, Joey LaBute, Kyle Rogers, Randy Lexwell, Jared Dion had Capricorn in their last seen charts. Or, well, I didn't have all their birth charts, but there's a lot of Capricorn in there. So, and here it is again. And he had an inordinate amount of Capricorn planets, plus the Aquarius. He was a whiz, this kid. He was very bright in engineering and math, physics, would come to him easily. And engineering. So it's a loss. It's really a shame because these were all very gifted guys that we're covering. I just see it in the horoscopes. And it's something way beyond, like I said, somebody got bumped off at the lake or somebody drowned. Mm-hmm. It's definitely, there are webs forming through all these stories.
I agree with that for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess, JJ, you know what I just realized? I didn't know if maybe you wanted to get to that later on, or did we forget it? You did send me 2 things to show.
Yeah, whenever you want to. I was going to close with those remarks, but if you want
to... no, I'm sorry. I thought maybe I forgot to bring it up. I'm so sorry. No, I thought I screwed that up on my end. Because I was going to say...
Those are some interesting patterns, BD. I definitely appreciate that analysis, especially when you're starting to see some of the same configurations come across some of these victims. I think that could be very telling of some of the occult ritualistic patterns involved here.
It does sort of create a network, like you have your blackboard or your board and you start putting your pins up and then you start tying your strings to the pins and they're all starting to lead to the same pins. And when I see it, and I see the same degrees, well, every degree has a meaning in addition to the sign and the planet that's in it and the house it's in.
Sure.
Every degree has a sign. You have that 8 is a number of Scorpio, death and murder. 8th house, death and murder. So I'm starting to become more aware of numerology of the horoscope, which we will see in Oracle. And I promise I'll stop dropping hints about that. I'll get to it soon enough. But there's a lot in there.
Nice.
It's gonna be fun. Thank you.
Yeah. No, so then I guess the reason why I was asking JJ is because I was thinking of going back to Lisa now, because I think now she probably will get to Oracle, I guess. Unless there was anything else that you wanted to add.
No.
Okay.
Not at all.
All right, good. All right, so then we'll pick up your thing later on at the end. Just let me know when.
Appreciate it. Sounds good.
All right. So I guess we're back to you now, Lisa.
Okay. And I'm just going to go through Oracle a little bit of how they were in Austin, and then a little bit of background. I don't want to do too much because I don't know what BD is going to cover. I do not want to overstep. I know she's got some phenomenal stuff to say, but I'm just going to kind of briefly talk about that and how all that does play in. And then I'm going to mention a few cases of cartel activity that I think are important to mention. And then tie it all together with an actual theory. Is that okay that I kind of do it at that point? Okay. So tech in Austin, it kind of started around the 1960s with the IBM and Texas Instruments coming in to the Austin scene, really. And they pretty much paved the way for the surge of high-tech companies to start coming in. And it started, and once that happened in the 1970s and 1980s, the Microelectronics and Computer Technology Corporation pretty much was the first company on scene that kicked off the emergence of these startups. You had your semiconductor manufacturers. I think it was Sematech Consortium that kicked off down there. You also had software development, computer design systems. You had Michael Dell coming out with Dell computers and Dell technologies. Now you had everyone in all schools had Dell computers, and that came out of Austin. And so because of that, you start to see slow growth of this tech or Silicon Valley in Texas happening. And so it wasn't until the 1990s and now up to date that you really see this like emergence of big hitting tech people coming to Austin. You have Apple, Google, Facebook, Tesla, SpaceX, Indeed, Palantir Technologies, and then Oracle Software Company. And I know Oracle had somewhat of a satellite company in 2013, but I think in a discussion with BD one time, you had mentioned it was a lot sooner than that, and I did not know that. I think I only knew of the 2013 presence because I had just moved to Austin in it was 2013, and that's when I was running around the trail and I saw that there was acquisition of certain lands, and that was the whole impetus of my Oracle, looking into them as well. But Oracle, and I'm sure BD is going to talk about this too, is a software company, and they're the second largest one, so they're a big deal. But so in talking about the whole presence in Austin is there's an area called Lakeshore Drive in Austin, and it overlooks the lake, and it overlooks an area of the lake where a lot of the bodies have been recovered. And what's interesting about this area is that it used to be apartment complexes that housed students, and students could live there. They didn't have to pay a whole lot of rent, and it was easy to get to the different universities around area. And it almost seemed the city didn't really care, and there was kind of a little bit of protest about that. But basically, Oracle came in and started buying up area, and they wanted that area. There was just a push for that specific area, in so much that they wanted to acquire 9 additional acres of that one area and were willing to swap 48 acres of another property that they had. And so you think, how are you giving up 48 for 9? But they wanted that area so bad. And I think that area was like a maintenance complex facility, and we just want to extend it further. And so now they have their entire headquarters for now, and their teaching facilities or training facilities overlooking Ladybird Lake in that one area of its Riverside and Lakeshore Drive. and then you can oversee Longhorn Dam from that area. And so what's interesting is I started looking at them, and the news came last month that, and of course, it's all the rave in Austin, is that Oracle's leaving Austin for greener pastures in Nashville. And so, it's funny because if they show up in 2013, and we've been covering this, we started talking about bodies showing up around 2012, 2013. Now, is it just me? I don't know, but have a lot of bodies shown up in Nashville before this year? I don't know. I have no idea.
No, I don't think so. It's been a recent uptick.
Riley Strain showed up.
Yeah, it's been a recent uptick for sure. Yeah,
and so Oracle makes the announcement that they're moving, and now we have all these bodies showing up. You know what I mean? Like, were there bodies prior to this year or last year?
No.
That's just me. And again, I love doing, offshoot, whatever. But, and one of the things that I thought was interesting is the property that they wanted to acquire was the actual City of Austin maintenance. And it reminded me so much of what Nick always says about the Rotary Club or maintenance or whatever, that you could dress however you want and do whatever you want, as long as you were in that garb, and dispose of whatever you want, and no one questions anything. And that, I don't know. So, yeah. But one of the trade-offs for the land swap for the 9 acres, and they were going to give the city, I don't remember, I think it was 48 or 24, 48 acres, of waterfront land property they were going to give the city, is that they were also in charge of setting up the new city maintenance facilities throughout the city of Austin. And it's like, what? What are you talking about? So it's weird that a software company would even be, involved in any of this. And so that kind of got me thinking of some other things. And the other thing is that so they announced that they're, moving to Nashville. And so what's happening in the backdrop of it all is that Texas lured Oracle, or supposedly this is a story, Texas lured Oracle away from California because they offered them all these tax breaks and tax incentives to come and establish here. And I think they offered it for 4 years. Well, I think we're looking at the 4-year mark. And I think that's what's happening because Tennessee and Nashville offered them 175 million tax breaks, and on top of Tennessee offering 65 million economic incentives. So these people are luring these people, regardless of the track record. Because if you look at the current track record of Oracle, you're not even looking at the history, which I'm sure, BD, I don't know, BD, if you're going to get into the history of the Oracle software company. But if you look at the current track record of Oracle, they are lots of litigation suits being brought against them. One in particular is in August 23rd, 2022, they were hit with a class action lawsuit saying that they were operating a surveillance machine which tracks in real time and records indefinitely the personal information of hundreds of millions of people. In the lawsuit, which demands a jury trial, alleges that Oracle has engaged in deliberate and purposeful surveillance of the general population via their digital and online existence. Now, and I think, please, BD, correct, stop me if I'm going over, but the beginning of Oracle was Larry Ellison and 2 other guys, right? And Larry Ellison was working or was involved in In-Q-Tel projects, which were CIA monies to start up these companies. And that Project Oracle was it was to collect all bits of data in the world, process them, and store them on an Oracle system. And these people just got hit with a class action lawsuit for actual surveillance machine. Yeah, they're doing it. It didn't stop in the 1970s. This is the new boss, right? So, and then also they all have been in trouble worldwide for violations of corrupt practices all over Africa, India, Turkey, United Arab Emirates, and so forth. So the list just keeps going on and on and on. But I think after looking into Oracle and knowing that they are cooperative with these intelligence agencies. And I've said this on this show, is that I think it's a mass collection of data. It's all about data. Data is a new oil. After looking at this, I realized that intelligence agencies are there to shape events based on the data. And so they need the data to shape the event. And at the same time, we have SpaceX in Austin as well. And the main guy who helped fund SpaceX and get him all of his contract incentives, which we covered with when we covered Elon Musk, was Mike Griffin. And Mike Griffin at one time was the CEO of In-Q-Tel, which is, we already discussed that. And he was the guy that helped at first he traveled with Elon Musk to Russia to buy ballistic missiles. And then when it was a no-go, he says, don't worry, I'll find, ways to help fund you. And when Elon pitched contracts to the government, even though he didn't have proof of ever launching a rocket, even though the other 20 companies that did have proof, it was Elon Musk who received the contract, because he was at the helm of receiving those proposals. It was Mike Griffin, who was also part of In-Q-Tel. And then we have the link back to In-Q-Tel with Oracle, right? And you also have Palantir Technologies, which is also part of the intelligence community. But you have all of these intelligence communities living in Austin in almost a very small square footage area. And then in the center of that is the lake, which to me, it seems like a little bit too much, right? Now to finish, and I promise this will be the last one that I say. So when you look at that, and then you put another activity.
Wait, can you
what I
repeat
just
that
said
again?
Go ahead.
Can you repeat that again? Because that was horrible.
So, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. The second layer. That so I'm going to talk about the cartel activity next. Okay. Just briefly put that on top of the tech that's in Austin. I believe that the cartel is going to be the runners, muscle, the transporters, the go-tos, the gophers, or whatever is happening in Austin. It is almost like a triangle. You have tech there, you have cartel there, and then you have the financiers or whoever's paying for whatever. So with the cartel activity, you look at Austin, and Austin is located roughly a little bit over 200 miles from Laredo, Texas. Why do you say Laredo, Texas? Well, Laredo, Texas is the 11th major U.S. port in all of the U.S., and it is number one for the most traffic through. It sees over 2 million trucks, 5 million cars per year. That's 10,000 northbound trucks a day. That's a lot. I mean, it's a lot of activity. It is said that the heads of cartels live in Austin because anyone that's worth about 5 to 10 billion, Austin's considered relatively safe. It's a fun, vibrant city. It's a small town feel, and it sits at the pivotal location of I-35. Laredo starts at the border, runs Austin through I-35, and then at Austin, you can take, or Dallas, you can take up to Chicago, you can take it up to New York, or you can take it over to Florida or California. So it sits at a very pivotal location for that type of activity to happen. So it was in 2013, that Austin reported to be command and control center for cartels. And it was said to be the center for contraband flowing up and down I-35. So you have a couple of instances where you say, well, really, is it that? Well, you have cartel presence, in terms of federal court cases that are currently being tried, that you have cartel factions that were laundering millions, if not billions of dollars through American quarter horse industry, which is a big deal, especially in Tennessee. And they're involved in training their horses right outside of Austin, not on that side of Austin, not the west side, but the east side, which is closer to Oracle, Longhorn Dam, and all that other stuff. You also have the same faction, Oklahoma and different places. One of the interesting things of 2013 is that you had two major distribution networks taken down in Austin. One with direct ties to the Mexican cartel that resulted in the seizure of lots of cocaine, marijuana, 75 kilos of methamphetamines. The list goes on and on and on. But they were basically a distribution network managed by the Mexican cartel, and they were hidden in different locations of auto body shops. So they had it all figured out in terms of Austin. At the same time, the tech is now building all of their, or having that tech explosion in 2013 at the same time that now the cartels are also expanding their network, so to speak. So you also have that. You also have a couple of people that have died that have been associates of. So we mentioned Brandon Cash. We mentioned some of the bars that have been involved in potentially drugging people. That you have some of the associates that went missing. And then when you have cartel members being on trial, they will admit to being a part of the people that got rid of some guy if they get a lighter sentence. But they know details enough to say, okay, that probably was a cartel hit. So you have somewhat evidence of businessmen in Austin utilizing cartels as a hit or as a hitman or what have you. There was also another report that links back to Tennessee, is that you had a car dealership owner that got in trouble with someone that he was soliciting online. She tried to solicit money out of him, and he obviously didn't want his wife to know or something like that. So he hired someone to do reconnaissance work on her, reconnaissance work on what was going on with that. And it was his security team that was working for him. Long story short, they ended up killing her and her boyfriend because they were extorting him for money. And so you start to see that, and the people that did the killings or the people that went and did the hit were ex-military or some sort of military training that were, like, I guess, for hire. So I think what's happening, now to sum it all up together, what I think is happening, it is Silk Road 2.0 or Silk Road 3.0, in that you need something, you need a body, you need organs, you need stuff for a snuff film, you need a hit, whatever, and you're going online using some of these software things, and they're readily available because they have to show to their clients that it can collect data, it can track, it can facilitate everything that. And in order to carry out the process, they're using the amount of cartel activity in there. So that's what I got.
Right.
I'll tell you, one thing that popped up in my head when you started talking about, like, the cartel and the body shops, it made me think about that Hummer.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, I think like, if I would have went into the paperwork more, it almost made it sound like they had the means, because of the business that they had, to alter that Hummer to make it street legal. But then you never did. Was it more of like maybe they were out riding around with the product before they fucking brought it to where it was supposed to go?
Right.
Maybe that's how they got caught with it. I don't know. But that was definitely interesting. When you talk about the cartel and Hummers.
They were redoing the military reserve vehicles, right? The old.
Yeah, it was something like that, right? Maybe that's vehicles. What it was. Yeah,
they were taking them and making them street legal. So I mean, they would need auto body shops for that.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, wow, okay. I could see the cartel wanting a Hummer. Why not?
Sure.
I'd want one, and I'm not the cartel, like a real one.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that was really weird. Something I don't want to interrupt, but I'm going to, because I just think it was really weird because I forgot why we brought it up, but you even specifically brought it up yourself, Lisa. And I think it's really weird, and I'm going to bring it up. Now, you mentioned a Lakeshore Drive earlier, right? Being next to, I think, a body of water where people were...
Lakeshore Boulevard. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, now, back in Ronkonkoma, you had mentioned that lake by Ronkonkoma, with where there's supposedly this Indian princess, like, lost her boyfriend, so every year she steals, like, a male in the lake. And, like, I had said for a long time, that shit happened. There was people supposedly drowning in these lakes. And we were always like, it was weird, but, like, Oh, I guess it was, the kid was drunk and it was the Indian princess, whatever. Just something like that. It was like almost like it was easy to blow off with that old Indian tale. And I was like, wasn't there a Lakeshore Drive over by Lake Ronkonkoma? And it is. I was like, that is so weird. You're like talking about some, almost like the same situation. There's the same road next to a lake that had an excuse for kids to go drowning.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, I remember one time in school, I think I was sitting in detention, and I remember that one of the kids that drowned one year had like brothers, and one of them was like in detention with me, and like the kid thought he was like hot shit, and whatever, he was a bad kid in school. He just ran his mouth and said whatever he wanted. And, like, he started saying some shit to this teacher, and, like, I guess, like, he wasn't the one, and he really didn't give a shit. And he was like, I don't give a flying fuck if your brother's the head of the 8-Ball posse or whatever. So now it goes back to my mind now when you're talking about, I was like, for all you know, that kid was knocked off and drowned because of drug shit. Gang shit.
Sure.
And now we're just thinking this kid was drinking and drowned in the lake because he was in a canoe with 3 guys instead of the 2 that should have been in it. Yeah. How do you know the other 2 didn't toss him over?
To that point, there has been a few that have drowned in a vehicle, but they don't fit the MO, so they're not reported. And they're Hispanic. Not that makes a difference, but I'm thinking they're Mexican cartel, they're Hispanic, maybe they're part of it.
I was just bugged out when you said Lakeshore Drive. I was like, I remember walking down that road, walking to the lake. When I lived around there, I was like, fuck. And I was like, and there was always people drowning there. Like, I remember as a kid hearing it, a lot more than I probably would have liked to. So,
sure.
Yeah, or at least hearing stories about it.
Definitely sounds spooky.
And the funny thing is that I know for a fact there is, I don't know if there was anymore, but there was some sort of Masonic entity near there. Because I'm almost positive might have been the Knights of Columbus, but I remember as a kid asking my father, like, what that place was, because I thought the name and like the symbol was just weird, you know what I'm saying? And my father was like, I guess, trying to explain it to me, but like I remember there was something like that near the lake as a kid, because I even remember asking about it, because it just looked like this like shady like, I don't know, just stuck out like a sore thumb in the area that it was in, just put it that way.
Right. Yeah, that's weird. And then of course all the Masonic lodges near.
Yeah, there was like one part near the lake where there was like a gas station, I think like a deli next to it, and then that was there, and like it was in like the middle of like a neighborhood near the lake. So like to me as a child, I thought it was weird that like you had this thing here where, I don't know, you just would have thought that was on Portion Road with all the other buildings. You know what I'm saying? It just stuck out like a sore thumb to me as a child. And it, like that, it had a big fence. I remember going around it so you could hardly even see the place, which I thought was creepy as a child.
Yeah.
Near a lake where you're hearing about kids drowning.
Yeah, right. Creepy building with a big fence around it. Yeah, that's definitely mysterious.
Yeah. And then it's like, then down this way you got Phoenix House, so the drug rehab.
Yep.
Yeah, where they're like MK Ultraing the people in there, and then they had like a veterans thing with like this gigantic like gun in front of it. So like as a child, it's like all these stories with the lake. You're just like, whoa.
I'm assuming at this point in time, with all these strange facilities and structures and activities, this lake has probably got some mounds around it, some mound stories as well. I'm just assuming, just given the high weirdness you're describing of the activities, it seems to.
There's definitely a lot of hills around there. I know that for a fact. Yeah, when we were younger, like we'd like skip school and go get stoned and just like drive down this one area. It was like almost doing like a roller coaster in your car.
No, nice.
Yeah. Stupid shit. Oh boy, those were the days. But yeah, I just thought, I'm sorry like that I interrupted and it took so much time off that, but that was just like bizarre to me. When you started saying that, I was like, this is like the same situation around Ronkonkoma. I was like, that's so weird. And like, it's just funny how like you could, I guess around then and I guess in those days, you took those stories and actually like kind of believed them a little bit. And like you would just brush off like shit that like may not have been that easy to just brush off, but you just did with like an Indian tale. Because all the streets got Indian names. There must be Indian bones there and somebody's pissed off.
Yeah, and again, but maybe the
Yeah,
two
and
aren't
to
that
your
far
point,
apart.
like-
You know, the fact that this is like a mount
No,
site
and-
with the high weirdness goes around these mount sites. You know.
Yeah.
No, sorry to cut you
a
off.
war
there,
that
Lisa.
happened with Native American.
Oh,
people that
Lisa,
came
you
in.
got to start all over
No, no,
again.
you're
You
fine.
froze up. You froze up. Sorry about that. Just start all over
Oh
again.
shoot, I'm sorry. No, there was a war there in that area between the Native Americans and the new movers in from into Texas. It was a massacre for sure. And some of the family wants the bodies back from museums. They want to put them back in the ground.
Sure.
So
Yeah, you know what? I've thought I've even, like when I was talking about when I went to Huntington, was like looking at all these like the Huntington militia people that are in there, or whatever, or like I was just like even wondering. I was like, where these like people that are like militias or army people? I'm like, are they some of the people that are actually slaughtering the Native Americans as soon as they got here? Like, because like they did. If you do kind of like look into like when I was looking into the history of that town, it just like they had their own army, so like it was almost like they were just like kind of just went in there and took it and said this is ours. And I'm like, I'm thinking like, who did you actually take it from? At some point it wasn't always white people,
right?
You know what I'm saying?
That's a good point, because that was a specific of important site. It seems to George Washington.
Just keep it real.
He visited that site as well. So I mean, it makes you wonder the early onset of this country, why they took these specific areas of land from and from whom they took it from. Yeah, I mean, certainly draws some more questions to that tale of the area what you're describing, the Huntington region. I think that does have some high weirdness surrounding it, given these occult people that started this country, because George Washington made a trip out there for some reason from New York City when he was president.
Yeah,
so.
He visited that place. I think he visited that cemetery or something.
Yeah, he did. Exactly. Yeah, he did. I mean, that's why it makes me wonder what was of importance to that site.
Yeah, that was another thing when you had told me about that. But I think I even read something on the cemetery, because I even went there and actually filmed it. And I thought it was pretty interesting. I never really put it out, but I was even like, this has. I mean, to me, I would think it would have significance if that dude showed up here.
Yeah, some occult
like white, sure. Especially his cemetery.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so Lisa, do you have more to say, or are we going to go into the Oracle now with BD?
Definitely go into the Oracle now with BD.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much for all of that, too. And here we go.
Bad connection.
Oh, it's all right. All right, BD, if you want, I'll pull up this stuff.
Yeah, I did look a bit into the history of Oracle, looking for charts of incorporation. Because when we did the Idaho 4 and I did the incorporation chart of the University of Idaho, it revealed so much about their nefarious background and how they could have easily been connected to a huge money laundering / drug operation with the Idaho 4 case. So I thought, I've got to find out incorporation data for Oracle. And to Lisa's point, I found two charts. They actually were initially incorporated in 1977, but there was another chart where they were incorporated in 1990, which is 23 years before the 2013. So that there was something going on there that was connecting, and that locality was Austin as well. So they were thinking about that a bit in advance. But anyway, looking into the history, I actually ended up going back about 1600 BC, because the name Oracle really struck me. I thought, Oracle Corporation, how deep does that run in the mental DNA of the company's mission statement? How does that relate to a corporation that does what it does, that is the world leader in cloud infrastructure platforms? I think they're the only ones doing that. And it's a tech giant. And I thought, what's up with Oracle? So I went all the way back to Delphi, and I looked into the Oracle at Delphi, and that was really fascinating. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Oracle at Delphi and see how that connects to what these dudes are doing now with Oracle Corporation. There's some remarkable correlations there. But what I first noticed was looking up the Oracle at Delphi. On the left, of course, it's the ruins, but you see these pillars there. And then I looked at, this is Oracle Corporation in Redwood City. Its initial launch, its initial birth was in Redwood City, California. And I'm looking at cylindrical things and I'm looking at pillars. I'm like, well, that's really interesting. So just for interest's sake, I looked at that. But the thing is, we have to go into a little bit of what the Delphic Oracle was. Delphi was the location on Earth of what the Greeks called the omphalos, which is the umbilical cord connecting the world to the outer limits of the universe, to divine intelligence. It landed in Delphi, so that was where they built the Oracle, and there's a lot of discrepancies in when that started. But the most commonly known was around 1600 BC, I believe. And an oracle is basically a prophecy made to a priest or to priestess through a divine intelligence. And so the Oracle at Delphi consisted of course, the temple. And there was a priestess, the most famous and long-standing one. Her name was Pythia, and she was a high priestess. She received the prophecies through the god Apollo. Apollo was the god of Delphi. He was the son of Zeus, and he. That's going ahead a little bit, but that's
okay,
all. Right. Those are all the things. That's okay. Anyway, that's where I'm at right now. So Pythia would channel what Apollo told her, and she would go into a trance. And sometimes she was speaking in tongues. So there had to be a separate room of priests who interpreted what Apollo channeled to Pythia, because she would either be speaking in tongues or she'd go into a rapture. And so going further with that later, there's a middleman involved in the translation of data, the translation of information. I'll get to that in a bit. But anyway, Apollo made these pronouncements to Pythia. And for a long time, there was a historical dispute about whether Pythia was stoned when she was receiving this information. Was she high on something? Was she stoned? And they said that she would get stoned on fumes coming from fissures underneath the temple, fissures in the earth that where gases came up from the center of the earth, and she inhaled them, and she went into a rapture and would therefore speak the prophecy to the priests, who then had to interpret it. Well, an ambitious archaeologist wanted to put the whole controversy to rest, so they went and did archaeological digs under the ruins of Delphi. And they found that indeed there were fissures in the earth where hydrocarbons were being emitted from deep within the earth, mostly methane, ethane, and ethylene. And that it very well could have been true that that Pythia was getting high on these substances, which is akin to somebody glue sniffing. I mean, like modern day Pythia is sniffing glue because it's hydrocarbons. So there you have the introduction of a drug-induced state into the prophecy, as well as middlemen who have to interpret the information. Now, there's funny stories about that. The prophecies were often in riddles. They weren't like, you're going to win the lottery next Tuesday. It was more like it was encouched in a riddle, so you had to figure it out, and you weren't sure, and there was a lot of ambiguity to these prophecies. That's why the priests had to sit in a separate room and figure out what the hell to tell the querent. But there's a story where King Croesus went and was about to set his army to war upon a nation, a neighboring nation. And he said, well, if I go into battle, will I win this war? And the prophecy was, if you go into battle, a kingdom will be lost. And he thought, oh, good, I'm going to win. So he goes into battle. The kingdom that is lost ends up being his own. So there's a lot of wiggle room in what these prophecies did, and in how the priests personally interpreted them. Now, the way you got a prophecy, you would get your own personal prophecy. I mean, people would go up Mount Parnassus, where the Delphic Oracle was located. Mount Parnassus on the left was one of the most beautiful sights on earth. It was up a mountain with gorgeous views, but there's a body of water below, of course. There's always a body of water. But people would line up to go and see Pythia and have something forecast for them. If you wanted to wait in line, you would. Everyone had to bring a sacrificial animal. So it must have been quite a throng of chaos going up this mountain to have the oracle deliver a message for you. Everyone had to bring their own sacrificial animal. Now, the clincher was two prophecies were equal. If you had money, if you were a king or you were an influential ruler, you were a politician, you were a leader, you would show up and jump the queue because you had money and you could get your prophecy in. So privilege spoke even back then. And certain wealthy rulers would bring exotic animals that were expensive to obtain. The higher the value of the animal, the better they felt the prophecy would be, the more favorable they thought the prophecy would be. So there's a lot of shenanigans involved with money changing hands and people buying things, buying the best prophecy. So that went on for many centuries. And Apollo, as I said, was the god of Delphi. And so we had the middlemen priests, we had the suggestion of drugs. We had Apollo as the god through whom all this information was channeled. And so now we can go next to the chart of Oracle Corporation. Oh, let's stop at that one. Yeah, hold that one. Go back. I'm sorry. There's two pictures of Oracle in Austin. Now, I put these up because they look nothing like the cylindrical ones from Redwood City, but I know something about feng shui. I've studied it. I practice it in my house. This is one of the most violent configurations for architecture. This sharp point of this corner of this building going out, it's like a knife blade. Whatever would be opposite that, if there's an office building opposite that, that brings actually really evil energy, or qi, as they call it, qi being energy in Chinese, really bad energy to whatever that is facing. That it's a very aggressive architecture. It looks uncomfortable as hell because who wants to be in a room with a sharp point like that? But I put that up because we'll get to the part pretty soon about why there is this aggressive tendency towards something violent. So now we can go talk about the Oracle Incorporation chart. Okay, now a few things circled. Mostly what I want to talk about is the red circle at the top. And this is, to me, this chart was deliberately planned. There's a branch of astrology called electional astrology, where you can actually go to an astrologer and say, when's the best time for me to get married? What's the best date for me to start a new job? Is next week a good time to go on vacation? And astrologers can figure that out. It's very hard to do that because you need planets to align a certain way. And there's 10 planets you're trying to make sense of, and they don't all fit the pattern you want them to fit. Some will not be in as good alignment as others. So it's a very tough branch of astrology to work with. I've done it. I found it hard, but I have done it for people. This particular chart had to be prepared in advance. This was not a random date where they decided we're going to incorporate Oracle Corporation. This was deliberately planned, and I love to meet the astrologer who did it because they must be some kind of evil genius. This was a brilliant piece of work to start a corporation with the goals that it has and the activities that it has. It's a work of brilliance. I could not get over it. I mean, when I was going over it, and I'll tell you why. The star is above the sun and the moon, and the sun and the moon are in the 10th house of career. First of all, I should say that it was incorporated on June 16th, 1977. That happens to be Donald Trump's birthday, but I don't know that he had that much to do with it. It's just a side note. But all incorporations for like hundreds of years, companies, buildings, colleges, what have you, were incorporated always at 12 noon. And the reason for that was that at 12 noon, the sun is uppermost, is upmost in the sky, has the greatest power because it's directly overhead. It's called the midheaven in astrology. and has the most power. And you want the sun, which is the life force of what you're creating with the company or the structure, you want it to be as potent as possible. So they would always incorporate at 12 noon. Now, that's why I use 12 noon for this chart, that they're not going to veer off it for that reason. But it ended up being so well aligned. Like I said, this was genius. And I wouldn't be surprised if this chart was concocted by an AI, because of all of the alignments that are perfect to precision for what they want to do. I'll start with the sun and the moon. They are together at 25 Gemini, and that's the sign of information. So of course you want to have a corporation that's in IT and works with information in the cloud. It's the sign of information. It's Gemini. It's ruled by Mercury. And the rising sign is also ruled by Mercury, which is Virgo, and it's at 12 degrees Virgo. The house systems I use, the house system I use, all the cusps will have the same degrees, equal house system. 12 degrees goes on every house cusp. Now think of the significance of 12. You had the 12 gods of Olympus, 12 tribes of Israel, the 12 disciples of Jesus, 12 signs of the zodiac, 12 houses in a zodiac chart. 12, 12, 12 goes on and on and on. And this has 12 degrees rising at noon, which is exactly what they want. The god messenger god Hermes, or Mercury, is rising, and it's conjunct the sun at the top. It's super powerful. So you're power charging your information. But there's one other thing, and I have to go a little bit into astrology. I usually don't get this technical, but it really makes a difference. The sun and Mercury are almost on top of each other, not in the sky, of course, but longitudinally, they're almost on top of each other. When planets when planets approach the sun longitudinally, if they get too close, they burn. The sun burns their energy. It weakens them. It's like if you stayed on the beach too long and you got sunburned. It's the same idea. A planet close to the sun is weakened by the power of the sun, and it's called combust, okay? However, as in an eclipse, there is a very, very brief point at which the sun and the planet are smack on each other. I think you only have 17 minutes of arc, which is part of a degree. And that only is possible with the sun and moon once every 28 days, which for a couple of minutes during that 28-day period. This is also a new moon. A new moon in Gemini begins a whole new cycle in the sign of Gemini. Information messages, okay? So the sun and the moon are so tight that they, rather than burn, the moon achieves extreme power from this close conjunction to the sun. It's called Cazimi. It's a Cazimi conjunction. So it's not just a new moon, it's Cazimi new moon. So this chart was super powered to do amazing work in tech and with information and science. Mercury also ruling commerce, ruling business, ruling books, and all kinds of knowledge, all kinds of printed matter, which then translates to software. So you had the Cazimi. When I saw the Cazimi, I was like, wow, I am impressed that they pulled this off in this chart. However, that's not the whole deal. There are asteroids that I've talked about in the past, planetary bodies that convey energies, and they are quite specific as compared to the planets, which rule hundreds of things. Asteroids are fairly specific. There's an asteroid right between, I don't know how they could fit it in because they're so tightly aligned. There's an asteroid right between the sun and the moon in this Cazimi conjunction, and that asteroid is Apollo. So when I saw that, oh yeah, baby, Oracle Corporation, Apollo, the god of oracles, I knew I was on the right track. So that blew me away, that Apollo is right in this power grid of the power of the sun and the moon. Talking a little bit more about the rest of it, we go clockwise. In the 8th house, which I call the house of murder and death, it's also the house of big banks, money, and investments. You have another conjunction, and that's Venus and Mars in Taurus. Very close, very powerful when put together. Now, Venus and Mars in Taurus tells me that this company will do anything to achieve its desires. When you have Venus-Mars conjunction and that, it wants to, there's greed at work, and it's going to get what it wants. Venus is what you want, Mars is what you do to get it. Now, there's a famous individual in history who had a Venus-Mars conjunction, and that was Adolf Hitler. So we know from his behavior that he did what he had to do to get what he wanted. He had a lot of help. But that's the same kind of activity in the house of banking, big investments. I call it also the house of money laundering. It's a house of murder and death as well. They'll do that if it's going to achieve an objective. So moving down to the side of going on clockwise to that end of that reddish purplish line, it's the vertex. The vertex is like, what's the point of this entity? And the vertex is close to the sixth house of service. It's in the sign of Aquarius. That rules high technology. And it's at 12 degrees. The vertex point is 12 degrees. So it's perfectly in alignment with the rest of the chart. And that's the company's mission statement: to give services in information, intelligence, and anything else data related and software related, because Aquarius rules software. Now we get to the money planet, going to the bottom of the red line that goes opposite the red circle at the top. That's the planet Neptune, and it is configured against all the planets at the top. It is an extension, a projection of how they're going to go about getting what they want, how they're going to go about in the world achieving their objectives. So I'll talk about Neptune. I already mentioned it before. But Neptune is extremely powerful. We think of the god of Neptune rules the ocean. It actually rules the deep, and you can't see what's under the ocean. So there's a lot going on there that we don't know. Therefore, Neptune rules the occult. It rules magic. It rules rituals. It rules deception. It rules drinking, drugs, and it rules drownings. And it also will rule anything done behind the scenes. It rules sacrifices. It rules fish. That's where I got that connection with the fish that Jonathan Honey had, because fish used to be an early Christian sacrifice because it related to Neptune. Neptune being the sacrifice relates to Jesus Christ. So in order to achieve objectives, this company is not beyond sacrificial practices. Okay. And going around then to the green circle is the planet Pluto, and it's sitting on the 12th house cusp. Pluto is a megalith. It's like it rules the atom bomb. It rules upheaval. It is super powerful in conjunction with whatever it's doing in the rest of the chart. Here it's on the cusp of the second house of money. This company has mega billions of wealth. That's part of their objective. That's what they work with. That's what they launder. That's what goes in and out of there. And it is a huge power play to have that planet on the house of money. There is massive power. And I know this company has been gobbling up companies like Pac-Man. They've been buying up, buying out right and left. So money is no objective. They have gazillions of billions of dollars. And this chart is telling me that they will take nefarious steps to achieve their purposes. Now, looking at, there's a diagonal dark red line, which picks up Saturn in the 12th house. Saturn in the 12th house is at 13 degrees of Leo. And it's hidden in the 12th house. Saturn can rule death, evil, misplaced ambition, and it also rules limitations. It rules what you will do with it to a certain extent to achieve an objective. It's a planet of karma. In the 12th house, it suggests ritualistic practices, occult practices, and it because it's well tucked away in there. And it's picking up alignment with the vertex, which is the vertex is the point of the whole deal. So they are not beyond any sort of ritualistic practice, occult practice, dark magic, ritual sacrifice. And now I can tie it back to the oracle at Delphi. When the people, the rulers went to get a prophecy and they paid good money and they brought expensive exotic animals. What does that sound like? I hate to sound callous about the victims, but these were high value individuals, high value employees that I believe were sacrificed for the purpose of Oracle Corporation gaining its foothold, doing whatever it wanted to do. And the sacrifices on Delphi were conducted near a body of water. I don't know what they did with all those poor animals. I don't know if they jettisoned them into the water below. I have no idea. But there was heavy duty sacrificing going on at this place. And the more expensive the animal, the more difficult it was to obtain the animal, the more exotic it was. You got a better return for your investment. Starting to sound a lot like a business was going on there as well. So, Nick, if you want to pull the document, the Word document that I have. Yeah, okay. This is how I tie everything up, which I think Oracle Corporation sees itself as the modern day Apollo, a god on earth, controlling data, controlling information, controlling software, which enables people to make decisions with what? Government, military, you name it, stock market. It's running the world. That's what they want to do. The Oracle of Delphi was near a body of water. Now, Oracle Corporation is near water in California. It's near a lake in Texas. It's going to be near the river in Nashville. So Apollo, there's a channel of information from Apollo, the divine intelligence. Now, Oracle draws their information from a cloud platform, the cloud, the heavens. They're getting it from basically the same place, although a different dimensional, but the cloud, and they got it from heaven before. So the god Apollo was the divine source. The asteroid Apollo is predominantly in the chart of their operations. There's no separation between those two identities. There were 12 Olympian gods, and we have 12 degrees on every house. The prophecies factored in high-level decision-making by rulers that sought the oracle to make decisions. Who's using information and high-tech and software, the data from the corporation? People that make decisions about economy, make decisions about war, make decisions about manipulation of populations. It's the same thing. It's information and data that people seek to make decisions. So I already mentioned that the animal sacrifices, and I hate to talk about the victims this way, but there seems to be such a meaningful correspondence between a high level, high target animal and a high value human being with tremendous knowledge and skill and intelligence. And think about the middlemen was interesting. The priests had to interpret this sometimes sounding like gibberish stuff that came out of Pythia's mouth. Now, what happens? You have programmers, you have project managers, you have your middlemen in these corporations. Is there a possibility of manipulating, massaging the data in some of the software to get a desired result, to achieve a certain end that they want, a certain goal that somebody has in mind? So you have the presence of middlemen who could be fudging some of the information. You never know. It could be mass manipulation of the consciousness with information that they choose to put out to the public. So, and these people could have been bribed in either case, because if somebody wanted to jump the queue and get their prophecy read first because they couldn't wait, you just pay somebody. So I sum it up as Oracle Corporation. It fancies itself a behemoth of data, information technology, which goes to nothing short of running the world, controlling governments, controlling economies. And that's pretty much how I sum it up. But Nick, I have to congratulate you, because you had no idea when you scheduled this talk that tomorrow is Apollo's birthday.
Yeah, no, actually, I had no idea about that. I didn't think about that.
That is just so cool. Oh, it's like an accident, but it's so cool. It is sharing synchronicity at work. But that's pretty much what I have about my take on Apollo, and Oracle, and everything that the tie into drugs, also being in an altered state, putting the ritual people into an altered state. That all it all fits. It fits. It corresponds. So that's my takeaway on the oracles.
Yeah, that is bugged out, especially with the way Lisa went into it.
Yep.
That's some weird stuff.
If I may, all of the crimes that Oracle is being accused of or being investigated for in other countries is all for bribes.
Doesn't surprise me. Yeah.
It's interesting you bring up bribes. That's amazing.
I saw somebody mention something about Idaho 4 maybe tying into that. I don't know. In the chat. It's so weird. JJ, what do you think about that?
I mean, that's great analysis, BD. I agree with the occult aspects of what you're saying there for sure, relative to the. That's kind of the way I looked at it. Is the reason why these ritual human sacrifices, these smiley face killer victims, are this is a modern day occurrence of an ancient practice, and I think that mindset of the exotic animal, so to speak, being the high valued human, I think there is a correlation there.
Yeah,
I think there is a presumed prophetic, increase in prophetic effect by sacrificing a human versus an animal.
Yeah, because these are value. I don't mean to say that the typical murder victim has no value. That's not what I'm trying to say. But these guys were very skilled, and losses to their fields.
Society at large, for sure.
Exactly, yeah. So I just thought, well, it's exotic animals and these very these skilled individuals that they don't think twice about the quality of the person being sacrificed. So why wouldn't it happen to them?
Even if you think of like the rarity of it, like being willing to sacrifice your own, how often are you going to get somebody willing to do that? That has value to it in its own way.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said there for sure.
It's almost Abrahamic.
Yeah.
When he sacrificed his son.
Yep.
Just like Moloch and all that shit.
Yeah,
I think it's a practice that never left, and it's just continued to evolve and change throughout time into the current patterns we're seeing today.
Yeah. And they were a throwback. They were going to use what to them was just a logical sequence of how to do things based on their occult, relationship to the past and history. Because those traditions just carry on. They're just sort of undercover most of the time.
Absolutely.
But it really fit. When I saw the chart, like, oh, this absolutely fits. That's why I said it was the work of an evil genius to pick that time to do that chart, to have all those correspondences. It just was amazing. And that's why I said probably an AI did it, because, wow, that would be really hard to do that chart deliberately, to have all those correspondences. And yet there it was. I was amazed by it.
Sure.
And you know what? AI, BD, that Larry Ellison, before he started Oracle, was working with Ampex, who started with an AI.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Yeah.
That's really interesting, especially with like, the Lady Bird Lake ones, which is what we're focusing more on now anyway. But even with that, like even how I showed, the Rotary Club, the Lions Club, Knights of Columbus in there somehow. I don't know if the FOP was there or it was with one of JJ's, but I mean, like I had said before, when I was insinuating that I thought that maybe that stuff might have had something to do with it, along with the bars, again, I don't know if those people really have any idea what they're doing. But like I've said to JJ before, and I think he even agreed, sometimes I do think those are just kind of like foot soldiers or your henchmen to kind of like take care of the mess you made. And for all I know, it's like, it's going through those channels because an occult is higher up, somewhere else is doing it, and they know that they can, they got some of their boys who's got their boys in here and there. We got you. It's going to cost you a little bit. Got you.
Right.
Yeah.
It's always a price for everything, it seems.
I mean, I was going to say, but I don't know if this is something you wanted to bring up too. I was getting a little bit confused when you were talking about the pagans. I didn't know if that was something you wanted to bring up here or the other show.
Oh, we'll bring it up in the future. Yeah, it's kind of more relative to that other discussion.
Oh, okay, all right. No, that's why I was saying I was getting I was a little confused about that, because I was going to even say, like, I even think that's why we even came across like a biker group. Because I even do think like those things are like sometimes used as like another outlet of like
absolutely
getting something done.
Oh sure.
Full of occultists too, it seems. Those biker groups. biker gangs.
Well, I think like even if you look at like the names or even like the patches just to begin with, it's like you obviously had a magician design. Like, I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of imagery going on.
Yeah, some of them like don't even like they'll throw up like certain symbols on there that people would already recognize. Like some of them don't care. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and like even the one that I found, like so wasn't it like some sort of angel group too or something like that. It's just like I know it's not like it's not saying like Toth, but you're still kind of using something that would be widely accepted amongst magicians regardless. Just because it's an archangel doesn't mean it's not used in occultism.
Commonly
accepted.
And,
yes.
Yeah, interesting. Commonly understood, it sounds like.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at. Yeah, so it doesn't sound as bad. Yeah.
Sure, that makes sense to me. I mean, I think there's a lot of that goes on with those little organizations. Again, these outlaw biker gangs. They engage in all sorts of these activities from drug trafficking to murder. So I mean, it kind of makes sense that there's these occult. If you look at it more, it kind of makes sense. They already operate within this secret society type of atmosphere. They have the occult imagery in their symbols and their logos. I mean, everything about them they operate as an occult group, but oftentimes they're not as considered as an occult group as so much as the Rosicrucians or the Masons or one of these other kind of magical, quote unquote, magical orders. But I look at them very much the same as part of the same network doing the same activities. I mean, you can throw the frats and sororities from Idaho in that kind of conversation, or any other university. I mean, these are organizations that operate under this sphere of secrecy. They engage in these occult activities and use occult imagery and symbols in their practices. I mean, I don't know what else we're talking here. We're not going to call them occult organizations as well. No different than the biker gangs. So yeah, I think a lot of them have similarities and probably work and find agreement with one another because of these aspects of the organizations.
Yeah, I've even thought that myself too. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'll definitely say, especially with the Ladybird Lake ones, with the tech or even the family members being involved, it just this idea with Oracle to me, I'm not saying that's definitely what's going on, but that theory does definitely, like, to me, I think hold some merit. Like if there's more, I mean, I hate to say it, but if there's more, and they keep going in that direction with that type of background, if you look into it enough, like at this point, I would have to say there's definitely something going on with that.
Sure.
I mean, because it is, I know there's been a bunch bodies there, but like if they're starting to become a trend with that, like again, for all there could be legit cases there of this happening, and they're just like, oh, okay, we'll just dump them over there, and they'll fall into that category of the drunks.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think because of the backgrounds of some of the victim of what they were doing or their family, I do think there's something shady going on over there when it comes to business and tech and the government. That's just my opinion. And again, I do think like then they use those secret societies as their henchmen to clean up the mess. That's my opinion.
Sure.
For right now. Now, if something was to happen while this podcast is still going on and there's new cases, and I guess we'll see if it keeps going in that pattern or not. Hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully it's done. But
yeah,
I mean, this stuff's been going on for so long, and it seems like just within like the last 5 years, we all started noticing it. The last 5 or 10 years, So who knows?
Maybe their magic's wearing off.
Yeah. No, I don't know. It just seems like it keeps getting worse and keeps going. It'll just pop up in a different
as far
state.
as why people are now paying attention to it.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Maybe their veil of magic is no longer providing them or their magic's no longer providing a veil of secrecy, right? Isn't that what like the Rosicrucians and a lot of these other magical orders are always after? Some sort of operating in plain sight, but with a veil of kind of secrecy, through some sort of magical spell type of deal.
There was something I think I remember when me and Lisa covered Rosicrucian. It might have been Michael Meyer or somebody else. I do think I even mentioned how in the book like it was like supposed to remain secret for a certain amount of years. Like, I think they may even specifying that kind of like in their version of a manifesto or something close to that.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, within Rosicrucianism, once you get to a certain level, they claim that they can kind of like become invisible just by again some sort of magic spell they convey over people that they interact with in public.
And you know, it's like
General public,
interesting with like the orders like Rosicrucian and Knights Templar and a few other ones is like within like the Masons or like the OTO or like other secret societies, sometimes you'll find those names as like add-ons on like other degrees that you're taking there with like other names. So it does kind of make me wonder, like, is that even showing you like the connection of that one idea into a bunch of different other places?
Sure.
You know, it's just like, why are you like, you're acknowledging that? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're identifying that specifically for some reason. Yeah. Yeah.
Like even the OTO has like I think the Illuminati in there at one point. Yeah,
Nice.
Yeah. And Crowley was like, "Yo, that'll be a selling point." He's like, "That's for the dumb rich fucks. I'm gonna put that in there."
Nice.
Large dues just went up $500 a month.
Always a capitalistic end to it, right? They gotta make that money.
Well, thank you all. That was a really informative, and it's just the whole series was really wild to me. And just unfortunately, I think everything that we showed, I think there's enough here to, I think, prove that there's obviously something probably going on with these deaths. And for some reason or not, I guess law enforcement and the courts just don't agree with that idea, and it just keeps going. And hopefully, again, like I said, there'll be no more. But if there is, I'm sure we'll be talking about it. Thank you, everybody who jumped in on the chat. That's what's up. You know, the usual suspects. I mean, I think a few other names that I don't see as often jumped in. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I haven't gone live, I don't think, in probably almost 2 weeks. I was away on vacation. As you can tell, I have a tan. And it was nice to actually finally podcast again. It was funny. I was actually like, I had nothing to do over the weekend because I really didn't want to have anything to do. I even text JJ. I was like, "Yo, are you busy?" And you're like, "Well, except for the weekend." I was like, "Fuck." I was like, "Yo," I was even like trying to like find a show or to do something. I was so fucking bored because I like gave myself like a week to recover from going away. I really didn't want to have to like schedule anything. So it was nice to get back. It was nice to see everybody in the chat. That's what's up. Hopefully soon. Well, one thing too for the people that are listening, I mean, you already heard it, but if you caught it from the middle, I'm only going to leave this up for today. I mean, and then it will drop when part 4 is supposed to drop. Reason why is because part 1 dropped today, and if people didn't listen to 2, 3, I know I would probably be like, "Oh, well, 4 is there in the live. Let me just go listen to that," and then I would probably never listen to 2 and 3. So I'm just not going to leave it up. I'll probably leave it up to tonight, and then I'm going to take it down. So if you caught it from the middle, make sure you try to listen to it before tonight, or it will be gone. It'll be out in a few weeks anyway. And I think I am dropping these like Monday, Tuesday, then giving a break, and then not Monday, Tuesday, Monday, Wednesday. Like I'm dropping them consecutively, kind of, and then putting a gap in there, and then 2 more. So they'll all be out relatively soon. And again, thank you all for jumping on. You all did amazing work. Real quick, JJ, let everybody know where they can find your stuff.
Nope. JJ Vance, host of Operation GCD. Great conversation. I enjoyed every bit of it. Nick, Lisa, thanks for the invite back here. And BD, great analysis there on your Oracle analysis for sure. I definitely enjoyed that, and the forensic astrology as well. That's great stuff. Like to see more of those patterns you're putting together for sure.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yes. Even I guess as a teaser, I'm hoping the next show that you see us do, all of us do together, will be JJ Vance actually covering psychics solving crimes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Me and him
Great
spoke
topic.
about that. Yeah. I was actually like really looking forward to that. I was gonna be like, I told BD about it. I was like, I gotta have you come on, even if you're not bringing
No,
it, just
absolutely.
come and hang out. You know, it's like kind of up your alley a little bit, right? Like,
Love to.
yeah,
Sure.
yeah. So I was like, she's a true comic cultist, so you know, it sounds
For
interesting.
sure, yeah.
So keep an eye out for that. I don't know, maybe a few weeks or a month or whatever.
All right.
But thank you all again for coming on. BD, let everybody know where they can find your stuff as well.
I believe my link tree is in the description below. I'm on Instagram and Twitter.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Lisa, the one who really kind of spurred this whole series. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It was definitely interesting, and you definitely, I have to give you credit. You pulled off an amazing series that I was definitely proud to cover on the Occult Rejects. You know, I appreciate that. So,
Well,
no,
we
for
couldn't
real.
have done it without BD and JJ. Seriously, BD's really, really love the stuff you put out today. I love everything you've been putting out every episode. It's just phenomenal. I love all the stuff you put out. So
my pleasure.
Really made
the
series more than what I even thought it could be.
I love it too.
Nice.
I'm just glad that it shows.
Yes,
That's all.
Yes. Yeah, that was I was really proud to put this out. I thought that was done amazingly. Yeah, and Lisa, like I said, I mean, you can find her on Instagram and Twitter. I should throw your stuff up onto my link tree and just put like, I mean, you're part of the Occult Rejects. So I might just add Lisa's contacts on there.
Nice.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, so check it out. Her contacts will be in the bottom. So. No, I feel bad because it's like I'm going to keep copying and pasting like an @ for like, I don't know. Just put it in the link tree. Oh, God, I'm too lazy. All right. So, yeah, that's it. And thank you, everybody in the chat again. That's what's up. I think I'm going live in a few more days with Thrash, Mike, and Headless. Lisa, were you coming on for that one, too? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And that for
Yes,
Space
I think
Force,
so.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. That should be really fun and interesting. And I think we'll be getting into Michael Aquino, some more Donald Trump.
Oh, nice.
I think some OTO stuff, too. All sorts of weird shit. And I think underground tunnels. You got to bring in the tunnels. You got to have the tunnels somehow.
The year of the tunnel.
Yeah, yeah, right, yeah, right. Idaho 4 kicked that off. Everything's got tunnels.
Right. It did, didn't it?
Oh man, that's the gift that keeps on giving. That crime.
Right.
It's like any stupid idea you want to like try to sell on YouTube. You got it with that crime.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Oh man. All right, I'm out of here, and everybody have a good day. Later.